Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, government's travel budget to increase by $4 million. A trio charged with possession of an AK-47. The immigration minister responding to claims of migrant abuse. Plus, the Ministry of Tourism wraps up a media blitz in Canada.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. The government's budgetary allocation for travel and subsistence for the next fiscal year is set to increase by just over $4 million, according to the 2019 Fiscal Strategy Report. This increase has been slammed by critics who also raised eyebrows over six-figure helicopter travel. Well, one cabinet minister insisted that the travel costs are associated with government's response to Hurricane Dorian. Jillian Gray reports.
Following the revelation that the Minnis administration increased its travel budget by nearly $4 million post-Hurricane Dorian, critics have come out to hit out against that move. However, one cabinet minister came to the defense of the government.
The criticism is there on the basis of facts. And I'm pretty proud of our record that we have been able to produce the information as opposed to just allowing people to speculate on the basis of nothing.
According to the government's 2019 Fiscal Strategy Report, that $4 million increase was due to three specific areas: $954,967 for various ministries and departments to travel, $3,017,195 allocated for per diem, incidentals and accommodations for public officers and uniformed staff, and $36,854 for the Ministry of Health's emergency flights from Abaco.
We evacuated some 200 persons with medical conditions. Most of that was provided by the U.S. Coast Guard, but some of it was provided by other carriers, and we had to pay for it. In order to get food, supplies, medication, staff.
Articles obtained by NASA Guardian columnist Sharon Turner reported that helicopter travel included costs to a U.S.-based firm at a rate of $110,000 per day for 6 hours of flight time per aircraft per day. Any flight time over 6 hours would be billed at $10,500 per hour. Sands maintained that the Minnis administration has been nothing but transparent and open.
People will dissect information which is now available. This is a totally different era. Now the information is there, the numbers are there, and now the discussion starts. That's when the fight starts.
However, observers have pointed out that this additional travel allocation is on top of the $18.9 million already budgeted for government travel and subsistence, which indicates that despite the record-breaking impact Hurricane Dorian will have on government revenue and expenditure, a decision has not been taken to cut back on or eliminate all non-essential government travel for the remainder of the fiscal year. The report indicates that travel expenditure for the next 2 fiscal years is estimated at $20.5 million and $21 million, respectively.
If you looked at Odyssey immediately after Dorian, the helicopters were like mosquitoes. There were helicopters going back and forth to Abaco and Grand Bahama, delivering supplies, delivering personnel, allowing us to assess what was happening on the ground.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Mixed reviews from taxpayers today on government's plans to increase travel expenses. While some feel it's what government has to do, others called it outright ungodly.
This is their world. This is their system. I can't stop them from doing it. I'm a pensioner. Pensioners never get a raise. And I think it's ungodly what they're doing.
Rosalie Curtis is a 70-year-old retired educator. And after dedicating over 30 years to teaching the country's youth, she said she's left disappointed in this latest decision by the Minnis administration to increase its travel expenses.
Once they get in, they don't remember the poor people anymore. So that's my view on that. This is their world. They do what they have to do. And I do what I have to do when election time comes.
This man we spoke to said after losing one business and struggling with another, he's not sure how he can keep up with increased bills. He decided not to speak on camera in fear of any effects it can have on his business. He said he thinks an increase in travel spending is ridiculous.
That's absolutely ludicrous. especially given the fact that they criticized the former government vehemently on that travel budget, especially the former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Vehemently, they criticized him. And for them to so-called increase their travel budget, that's just insane. That's not acceptable.
And other taxpayers shared his sentiments.
No, I don't think it's a good idea. Not at all. The taxpayers, we already hit with all the VAT and all the different taxes, and you're basically raping the Bahamian people.
It's not fair.
Why do you feel that way?
I mean, they then gone up on tax, and the Bahamian people wasn't even ready for tax in general, so.
They spend excess money and putting burden on the poor people.
Government released its 2019 fiscal strategy report showing an increase in its budgetary allocation for travel and subsistence for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Taxpayers are now calling into question the need for expenses like $110,000 per day for helicopter travel. The increased travel spending has been blamed on Hurricane Dorian. But Sherry Gibson insisted people should give government a chance and trust its explanation.
I guess they're looking on the long run, how they spend the money and whatnot, and make it benefit for the people in the short term benefit, yeah.
So you don't mind them increasing their travel?
No, I don't mind.
According to Nassau Guardian records, there have been nearly a dozen trips by cabinet ministers since Dorian struck Abaco and Grand Bahama in early September. On September 26, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis traveled to New York to deliver remarks at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Around that time, Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands went to Washington, D.C. In mid-October, Minister of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration Ellsworth Johnson traveled to Sao Paulo, Brazil. Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar traveled to Fort Lauderdale for the 60th Annual Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, and most recently to Canada. Earlier this month, Attorney General Carl Bethel traveled to Washington, D.C., and a few days later, Bethel, Johnson, and Minister of Foreign Affairs Darren Henfield traveled with the Prime Minister to Brussels, Belgium. Minister of Education Jeffrey Lloyd attended UNESCO's 40th General Conference in Paris, France, from November 12th to 15th. And while taxpayers like Van Sims agree with Gibson, he says if government can't account for the additional spending on travel, Bahamians know what to do.
The government kind of know what they're doing. Let me put it like that. We elect them there, so let's give them a chance to do what they have to do. I have a little faith in the government that hopefully that they do the right thing. If not, then that's why election process take place. If not, then we just take them out.
Attorneys for both the defense and the prosecution gave their closing arguments in the Shane Gibson trial today. The two sides spent hours arguing their case before the jury. Jasmine Brown was in court and has the details.
Starting off closing arguments before Supreme Court Justice Carolita Bethel and the one-man, eight-woman jury was lead defense attorney Keith Knight. The Jamaican QC spent nearly 3 hours attempting to tear apart the prosecution's case against former PLP cabinet minister Shane Gibson. Prosecutors allege Gibson received $280,000 in bribes from contractor Jonathan Ash between January 2017 and March 2017 to assist Ash with being paid more than $1 million he was owed by the then Christie administration for Hurricane Matthew cleanup. During an impassioned closing argument, Knight told jurors the case against his client was a strange one, born out of an act of conspiracy, an evil plot, and corrupt actions. Knight slammed the prosecution's key witness in the case, Jonathan Ash, saying his evidence was like they had given him cuckoo soup and that he was all kapunkel up, as he accused Ash of lying on the stand. Knight told jurors that the prosecution never proved its case that Deborah Bastian, the woman Ash testified he paid and who he said paid Gibson bribe money, ever paid Gibson anything. Knight also brought up the fact that Deborah Bastian was not called to testify in court and questioned why only Gibson was facing charges. He exclaimed, "The prosecution says Bastian is Shane's agent. Where is Deborah Bastian? I don't see her. Do you see her? Bring Bastian. Let us assess her." Knight also questioned the police investigation and investigator ASP Deborah Thompson, who he insisted went against police procedure by interviewing Ash and Bastian in the same room, even though it went against police procedure. Knight also questioned why his client was in court and said it was because of wickedness, misconduct, and corrupt practices. Knight wrapped up by asking the jury to acquit his client and send a clear message that they do not accept the prosecution's evidence. Lead prosecutor James Guthrie QC argued a much different case as he gave his closing arguments. Guthrie told jurors that Gibson's defense team was only seeking to distract from the evidence presented in court. Guthrie said the defense's conspiracy theory was nothing more than nonsense and a distraction. He said, "It is a desperate attempt to distract from the evidence when there is no real defense at all." Guthrie also pointed out several of those distractions, including the defense's claim that there was something untoward about the September 2017 meeting with Ash, Bastian, ASP Thompson, and their attorneys. While ASP Thompson admitted on the stand that in hindsight it was wrong to hold the joint meeting, Guthrie told jurors that both Ash and ASP Thompson had said the joint meeting was only trying to find the truth. Guthrie told the court there was nothing sinister. Bastian and Ash had their lawyers present, so it would be impossible for ASP Thompson to cook the books and try to pervert the course of justice. Guthrie also defended Ash and his testimony as he reminded the jury that Ash had been on the stand testifying for 7 to 8 days and that he left the witness box without damaging his evidence. As for the defense's claim that Ash was lying in his evidence, Guthrie said Ash did not lie, as he asserted it was Gibson who lied. He pointed to Gibson's answer to police when he was questioned on the matter and asked if he ever asked for or demanded any shingles from Jonathan Ash. Gibson told police no, but Guthrie pointed out a WhatsApp message Gibson sent to Ash asking if there were any shingles today. He also pointed to Gibson's statement to police that he did not know Ash well, when WhatsApp messages showed the pair messaged back and forth on WhatsApp. Guthrie also hit out at the defense's claim that it was former Financial Secretary Simon Wilson, former Ministry of Works Senior Engineer Mr. Rahman, and Permanent Secretary Jack Thompson who assisted Ash in getting his payments. He called it nonsense. Guthrie said the evidence clearly showed the money started flowing after Ash met with Bastian and Gibson at the former cabinet minister's then office on Meeting Street in January 2017. He said, "There is no room for doubt about what happened. We know the bribes worked." Guthrie ended his closing arguments by saying whatever Gibson's good points, he was corrupt and saw an opportunity to take advantage of his position in government. The matter continues on Wednesday morning. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
3 men faced a magistrate today charged with attempted murder and possession of an AK-47. Jared Higgs reports.
The men were set to be charged on Monday. However, due to an emergency, the matter was pushed to Tuesday. Now, all 3 men are 23 years old and they all hail from Yellow Elder. Now, they face 6 counts, including a charge that they possess an AK-47 with the intent to endanger the lives of 4 police officers. Trevon Lockhart, seen in the blue Nautica shirt. Malik Roll, pictured here in the blue polo shirt. And Ashton Rebeldo, seen in the blue t-shirt, faced 2 counts of attempted murder in relation to an incident that took place in New Providence on November 17th. Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt told the men that they're accused of attempting to murder Anthony Cash and Kelvin Clark. They weren't required to enter a plea to those charges, and bail was denied on those counts. The men also face 4 counts of possession of an unlicensed firearm with intent to endanger life. Prosecutors allege that the Yellow Elder residents had 2 weapons, a silver .45 caliber Colt Defender pistol, serial number DR-160, and a black AK-47, serial number PMD-05123117RO. They further allege that the men used those guns to endanger the lives of police officers Leonardo Dorset, Lamar Ash, Bradley Taylor, and Rico Brown. The trio weren't required to enter a plea to those charges, and bail was denied. They were remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until their next court appearance on January 20th, 2020. That's when prosecutors say they plan to fast-track the case to the Supreme Court. The men were represented by attorneys Joseph Darkyle and Alan Emanuel. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
A 20-year-old man was also arraigned today on murder charges. Marquine Williams in the red shirt was charged with the November 19th murder of Travis Knowles. Knowles, known by friends as Muslim, was gunned down last week on Ash Lane near Mount Tabor Church. Another man was also shot during that incident, but he survived. Knowles ran to a nearby yard where he collapsed. He was eventually transported to hospital where he died. Williams was not required to enter a plea. Bail was denied and he was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until January 21st, 2020. His matter will proceed by way of voluntary bill of indictment. He was not represented by an attorney. Still to come, the immigration minister responds to migrant abuse claims. Plus, the political debate heats up on marijuana. Stay tuned.